In every forgotten object lies a quiet possibility, waiting to bloom again. Here at TERAFLORA Studio, we explore those moments where imagination meets the earth, where a cracked pot becomes a cradle for ferns, where discarded glass turns into light, and where small acts of care transform space into story. This series is for those who find beauty in imperfection, who pause long enough to listen to the garden breathe. Each idea you'll see here is more than design. It is a conversation between time, touch, and transformation. We believe that the simplest materials carry the deepest soul. A piece of driftwood remembers the river. An old barrel still hums with the rain it once held. Through our hands, these fragments come together again, forming spaces that feel timeless yet alive, practical yet poetic. At TERAFLORA Studio, we do not rush to create perfection. We learn from the patience of moss, the resilience of stone, the grace of things that weather softly. Every project begins with observation, imitation, and gentle modification, the art of seeing potential where others see waste. This is designed not just for the eyes, but for the heart. A practice of slowing down and finding harmony between what was and what can be. Before we begin, please note, this content has been carefully written and composed with the assistance of AI, ensuring precision in detail and warmth in tone. Every word is crafted to help you imagine, plan, and bring these creations to life with your own hands. If you find peace, joy, or inspiration in what we share, consider subscribing to TERAFLORA Studio. Your support allows this garden of ideas to keep growing, one story, one creation, one bloom at a time. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is the quiet philosophy behind the most heartfelt DIY work. The Bottle Glow Pathway Mosaic begins with something humble. Discarded bottles once forgotten in corners of storage or recycling bins. Under the soft light of evening, these fragments of everyday life are reborn as glowing gems that lead the way home. Imagine kneeling on the cool gravel, hands brushing aside dust as you place each bottle piece into the earth. Green, amber, and clear glass catch the light differently, reflecting stories of the sun that once poured through them. There's a rhythm in this repetition, choosing a piece, placing it, pressing it down until it fits. The task becomes a meditation. Soon, the path begins to take shape. It doesn't need to be perfect. The charm of this idea lies in its irregularity, the small imperfections that make it feel human. When dusk comes, light dances across the glass, turning the ground into a quiet river of color. Visitors might pause without knowing why, drawn by something both ancient and familiar, the alchemy of turning waste into welcome. If you wish to make one yourself, gather old bottles in varying colors. Cut or sand their bottoms carefully, or use whole neck-down bottles for deeper glow effects. Bury them halfway into compact gravel so they sit firm but still catch the sunlight. Lavender or thyme planted along the edge adds fragrance and softness, balancing the cold shine of glass with living warmth. The magic appears when the day fades. As the sky deepens to blue, the bottles hold the memory of sunlight, glowing softly as if lit from within. No electricity, no cost, only time, patience, and imagination. And when you walk this path, the crunch of gravel beneath your feet feels like applause for what human hands can still create from what was once discarded. This is more than a walkway. It's a story of renewal, a quiet declaration that beauty does not require wealth, only vision and care. With each glimmer beneath your step, you are reminded that creation often begins with what others overlook. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is the beauty of practical art. The rustic rain barrel and chain feature transforms the humble act of collecting rain into a living performance. It's not about decoration alone. It's about rhythm, sound, and gratitude toward the elements. When clouds gather, most roofs hurry their rain away, pushing it into drains and gutters. But in this garden, rain is not dismissed. It's celebrated. From the eaves, a silver chain descends, each link catching drops that shimmer like beads of glass. The water flows gracefully, threading its way into a barrel made of aged wood, its surface etched with the lines of time. The sound is soft, a murmur between sky and earth, a reminder that nature speaks when we choose to listen. Standing nearby, the air feels fresher. The scent of wet wood, the cool mist rising from the pebbles, the quiet percussion of droplets, all combine into something deeply soothing. It is both utility and poetry. These barrels once worked hard in another life, storing grain, carrying harvests, holding dreams of work and time. Now they serve again, catching water that feeds the soil, the herbs, the flowers that bloom nearby. To recreate this idea, you need only patience and care. Find reclaimed barrels or even large clay pots. Clean them, seal their interiors with natural oil, and set them beneath a rain chain. The chain can be store-bought or handmade from metal rings. Guide it from the roof down to the barrel so that each drop flows in rhythm. Around the base, add pebbles, ferns, or iris plants to soften the scene. When the rain comes, let it play its melody. Stand near and listen. You'll feel the peace that only slow water can bring. And when the sky clears, the barrels remain, silent sculptures of function and memory, holding what they've gathered from the heavens. In this way, the garden becomes more than soil and green. It becomes a stage where every drop finds purpose. Through simple reuse and thoughtful placement, rain turns from runoff into ritual, and every storm becomes a moment of quiet grace. Observe, imitate, then modify. That's how small spaces bloom into wonder. The garden mirror illusion wall is not merely a trick of reflection. It's a whisper of imagination. It begins with a mirror salvaged from an old frame, its edges worn smooth by time. Placed in the right corner, it changes everything. The view, the light, even the way the garden feels beneath your breath. At first glance, you might not notice it. The mirror seems simply to catch a glint of the sky, a shimmer of green. But step closer and something subtle shifts. Trees appear taller, the fence seems to drift away, and flowers multiply in endless rows. It's as though you've stepped through a doorway into another, gentler world. That's the secret of reflection. It doesn't just show what exists, it shows what could be. The materials are simple: a discarded mirror, an old window frame, a wall of wood or brick waiting to host it. But the placement is everything. Tilt it slightly forward so it catches more sky than ground. Frame it with ivy or moss to soften its edges and blend it into the living world. The goal is not perfection. It's illusion, a seamless conversation between real and reflected life. On bright mornings, light pours through the glass, scattering across leaves and petals. In the afternoon, shadows dance within the mirrored garden, tricking the eye and delighting the heart. Even at dusk, when colors fade, the reflection glows faintly, holding on to the last warmth of the day. It's remarkable how such a small gesture can expand a space so dramatically. For narrow front yards or hidden corners, this idea offers a touch of enchantment without cost or complication. And beyond its practical magic, it carries a quiet metaphor that beauty often exists twice, once before our eyes and once within them. If you choose to make your own mirror wall, treat it not as decor, but as a window to possibility. Clean the glass gently, frame it with plants that change through the seasons, and let the reflections tell their stories. In time, your garden will feel endless, a place where imagination and reality gently intertwine beneath the same sky. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is how ordinary objects rediscover their purpose. The ladder trellis mailbox charm begins with something forgotten. A ladder once used for work, its paint chipped, its edges softened by rain and time. One day, it leans beside a mailbox, not to climb rooftops but to lift color into the air. Morning glory vines curl around its wooden steps as if grateful for a place to rise. Sweet peas trail from one rung to another, their fragrance gently greeting anyone who passes. What used to be a plain corner now feels like a story, the meeting point of labor and beauty, of the old and the blooming new. It's a design born from patience and imagination. The ladder needs no perfection. Its scars are its history. Lean it safely at a soft angle against the mailbox post. burying its base a little into the soil for balance. Paint can be left weathered, or brushed lightly with oil to preserve its tone. Then comes the magic, choose climbing plants with life and texture. Morning glory for quick color, jasmine for scent, or ivy for year-round greenery. As the weeks pass, the ladder transforms. Flowers weave through its steps. Bees wander lazily between blossoms. Even letters placed in the mailbox come with a gentle rustle of leaves, a perfume of soil and sunlight. The scene becomes a living frame, shifting with every season. Fresh and alive in spring, lush and humming in summer, golden and quiet in autumn. This humble pairing between ladder and mailbox offers more than decoration. It creates a pause in the day, a reminder that beauty doesn't demand perfection. It only asks for care. Every vine climbing upward is a small act of hope. Every letter delivered carries a hint of fragrance, a glimpse of joy for whoever stops to look. To build it is easy. To love it takes attention. And that is the lesson this corner teaches, that old things do not lose their worth. They simply wait for a gentler task. In this new purpose, the ladder stands proud again, holding not just flowers, but stories that continue to grow long after the mail is gone. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is the secret of turning work into wonder. The vintage wheelbarrow bloom chest begins with a symbol of labor, a humble wheelbarrow once burdened by soil and stone. Left alone, it rusts quietly in a corner, but with a little imagination, it becomes the heart of a garden, a vessel of color, fragrance, and memory. Picture it resting near a gravel path, its handles softened by years of touch. Inside, fresh soil breathes again, alive with pansies, petunias, and trailing ivy that spills over like laughter. The contrast is beautiful. Old iron meeting new life, decay meeting bloom. There's poetry in that pairing, the kind that speaks softly but stays long in the heart. Creating your own bloom chest is easy. Find a used wheelbarrow, no matter how worn. If rust clings to its surface, let it stay. That's the soul of its story. Drill a few holes at the bottom for drainage. Line it with a bit of gravel, fill it with rich potting soil, and choose plants that thrive together. Geraniums for volume, marigolds for cheer, and ivy or alyssum for a graceful cascade. When you water it, droplets roll down the edges, carrying reflections of sunlight. Bees arrive, uninvited but always welcome. Each season brings a new expression. Spring with tulips, summer with trailing blooms, autumn with chrysanthemums. Even in winter, when it stands bare, its form holds quiet dignity, like an old song waiting for its next verse. The wheelbarrow doesn't just display flowers, it carries stories. Every scratch and dent recalls a past season of labor, transformed now into joy. Guests who pass by often pause, smiling at the sight, drawn not only by beauty but by nostalgia, the feeling that something useful has found peace. In every garden, there's a place for rest and remembrance. The vintage wheelbarrow bloom chest gives both. It teaches us that no tool, no object, no effort is ever truly finished. Everything can bloom again if only we let it. And in that simple act of renewal, the garden reminds us, transformation is not an end. It's a continuation of purpose, dressed this time in flowers. Observe, imitate, then modify. That's how beauty quietly grows from the simplest things. The checkerboard brick and herb patio turns reclaimed materials into rhythm. It isn't about symmetry alone, but about the dance between structure and scent, between red brick and soft green. Imagine kneeling on a quiet afternoon, hands brushing through gravel as you place each brick by feel rather than measure. There's a certain freedom in the imperfection. Each brick holds its own story, a chipped edge, a faded color, a memory of walls long gone. Between them, you plant small seeds, thyme, chamomile, oregano, letting their roots weave where mortar once would have been. Soon, life fills the spaces, and fragrance becomes the language of your floor. The result is not a cold pattern, but a living patchwork. When sunlight falls, the red of the bricks deepens, and the pale gravel sparkles softly. Step across it barefoot, and you'll feel both warmth and coolness under your skin. Each move releases a hint of scent, a breath of green perfume that makes even an ordinary morning feel intentional. Building your own patio like this doesn't demand perfection or wealth. Gather old bricks even if they don't match. Lay them loosely on leveled soil, alternating squares with gravel. Between those seams, plant hardy herbs that enjoy dry feet and sunlight. Thyme is perfect, resilient, and fragrant. Chamomile adds softness, and creeping mint brings surprise. Soon, this space becomes your outdoor room, where morning coffee feels sacred, and evening light stays longer than expected. The grid beneath your feet hums with life. Even the smallest step feels connected to something older, wiser, more patient. There's a charm in how it ages. Rain deepens its color, sun softens its edges, herbs spread like laughter. Over time, it becomes not a design but a memory in motion. You'll find yourself pausing here often, not to admire, but simply to breathe. The checkerboard brick and herb patio teaches that design isn't about perfection. It's about balance between what's built and what's allowed to grow, between pattern and wildness. In that balance, the garden finds its calm, and so do we. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is the gentle rhythm of rustic design. The log-round woodland border is a reminder that nature doesn't rush to align itself. Its beauty lies in variation. In a world that often demands perfection, this border stands quietly, uneven but harmonious, crafted by hand and guided by instinct. Imagine standing at the garden's edge, holding small cut logs, each one a story of growth, wind, and time. Some are tall, others short. Their rings tell of seasons past. You place them side by side into the soil, shoulder to shoulder, forming a soft boundary between the wild and the tended. No ruler, no strict line. Just the steady trust that nature prefers rhythm over symmetry. Behind them, hydrangeas swell in pale blue and white. Foxgloves lift their bells in a chorus of quiet color. Between the logs, moss begins to gather, a natural seam stitching earth to wood. When sunlight filters through the leaves, it paints soft shadows that move with the breeze. The whole border feels alive, breathing in time with the garden. To make your own, collect logs from pruning or fallen branches. Cut them evenly at the base so they can stand upright, but allow their tops to vary. Peel the bark if you wish, or leave it rough to invite moss. Push them deep enough into the soil to stay stable through rain and wind. Over time, they will silver with age and soften into the earth, as though they've always belonged. There's quiet satisfaction in seeing them settle. Rain darkens their grain, leaves gather gently at their feet, and birds hop along their tops as if they, too, approve of the design. This border requires no maintenance, only patience. Nature will do the decorating herself. The log-round woodland garden border doesn't just hold soil. It holds a story of cycles, of transformation, of balance between human touch and natural time. Every uneven height, every bit of moss, every weathered surface is a line in that story. It reminds us that beauty is not made by precision alone, but by harmony, the kind that grows quietly when we choose to build with, not against, the earth. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is how old materials find new grace. The galvanized trough succulent ribbon transforms weathered metal into quiet elegance. It begins with troughs once used for farm chores, feeding animals, holding water, carrying tools. Their surfaces now bear the soft gray patina of time, a kind of beauty that no paint can imitate. Imagine setting them in a line along the garden edge, like a silver ribbon marking the boundary between wild grass and the walkway. When the sunlight hits them, they gleam faintly, their texture whispering of work and weather. Inside, the story changes. Rough metal meets soft life. A tapestry unfolds. Green succulents shaped like rosettes, burgundy echeverias with velvet edges, dwarf conifers standing steady through the seasons. This border feels disciplined yet alive. The straight rhythm of the troughs guides the eye, but inside each container, nature plays freely. The succulents spill over the edges, catching drops of dew. Their geometry feels sculptural, modern, and ancient all at once. It's a design that requires little but rewards endlessly. Low water, low care, and constant charm. To make your own, find galvanized troughs or even metal basins from flea markets or farm stores. Clean them gently but let their age show. Drill a few drainage holes at the bottom. Fill with well-draining soil, a mix of sand and compost, then arrange plants by texture and tone. Spiky beside smooth, tall beside trailing. Gravel around their base will complete the look, reflecting light and preventing weeds. As weeks pass, the metal and plants settle into harmony. Rain streaks the surface, sun deepens the hues, and bees hum lazily over the blooms. Even in winter, the conifers and succulents hold their form, steadfast and graceful. This design isn't loud. It doesn't beg for attention. Instead, it rewards those who pause, those who notice quiet details, the beauty of endurance. The galvanized trough succulent ribbon proves that even industrial remnants can become poetry when paired with patience and life. It is the meeting of steel and soil, of permanence and change, of the human hand and nature's forgiving touch, all in one silver line of living art. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is how gardens learn to breathe. The fieldstone gravel pathway thread is not a path of precision. It's a song of patience and time. It begins with stones, heavy, uneven, shaped by years of rain and silence. Each one carries its own story. Together, they form a rhythm across the earth. Imagine stepping onto the path early in the morning. The air is cool. Gravel crunches softly beneath your feet, while the fieldstones, smooth and solid, offer sure footing. Moss has begun to creep across their edges, painting soft green halos where stone meets soil. Between the gaps, tiny plants appear, thyme, violets, even the occasional blade of grass that refuses to stay trimmed. Nothing here is forced. Everything simply belongs. The charm of this design lies in its imperfection. No ruler guides the placement. Each stone finds its spot by instinct, not by measurement. The gravel between them catches light and rain, reflecting the sky like 1,000 tiny mirrors. When the sun lowers, the path glows faintly, its curves guiding you onward, slow and steady. To create your own, start with a cleared line through your garden. Not straight, but softly winding, as if it grew there naturally. Lay a thin base of gravel, then begin placing stones one by one. Vary their size and spacing so your steps feel natural, not mechanical. If a stone wobbles, add more gravel beneath. Leave narrow seams between for moss or small creeping herbs to root. Over time, the path becomes more than a way forward. It becomes a memory of movement, shaped by every step that crosses it. Rain darkens the fieldstones, sun warms them, and seasons write their subtle stories in the dust and leaves that settle there. Guests will follow this thread without realizing why. It draws the eye, the heart, and the imagination, inviting both wonder and rest. It's a design that teaches us to trust time, to let the natural world do the finishing touches. The fieldstone gravel pathway thread shows that beauty doesn't rush. It unfolds slowly, one stone, one season, one quiet step at a time. Observe, imitate, then modify. That's how simplicity becomes serenity. The fragrant herb rail walkway isn't built to impress the eye alone. It's made to comfort the soul. It invites you to walk slower, breathe deeper, and rediscover the small luxuries that grow from the ground. Imagine a narrow gravel path curling through the front yard, bordered on both sides by living scent. Lavender sways in the morning air, its violet blooms catching bees that hum like gentle music. Beside it, sage stands steady with silvery leaves that shimmer softly under sunlight. Oregano spills along the edge in green cascades, brushing against ankles with every step and releasing a whisper of fragrance that follows you like memory. There is nothing hurried here. Each herb grows freely, their shapes imperfect but full of life. As you pass, your hands can't help but reach out, fingertips brushing the leaves. The air fills with their oils, crisp, earthy, clean. Even on the hottest afternoon, the scent feels like shade. This walkway is a living perfume, a boundary made of breath. To create one is to build with patience. Lay down gravel or flat stones first, forming a narrow trail that curves naturally through your yard. On either side, plant hardy herbs that thrive in sun and poor soil. Lavender, thyme, rosemary, oregano, sage. Water sparingly, and trim just enough to keep their shape. The less you fuss, the more they thrive. As the seasons shift, the fragrance changes too. In spring, thyme carpets the edges with small blossoms. Summer brings the lavender's hum and rosemary's strength. Autumn softens the air with dry, comforting tones. Even winter carries a hint of green beneath the frost. This is not a design of display, it's a design of rhythm, meant to be lived with, not looked at once and forgotten. Walking here becomes a daily ritual. Each step is sound, scent, and silence woven together. It reminds you that beauty can live in the simplest gestures, the brushing of leaves, the breathing of air warmed by sun and earth. The fragrant herb rail walkway is a path not just for feet, but for peace, an invisible line of calm drawn gently across the day. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is how utility becomes poetry. The wildflower verge lantern post stands quietly where the garden meets the street, transforming a simple boundary into a warm invitation. It glows not only with light but with life, a harmony between crafted structure and the wild freedom of bloom. Imagine it at dusk, the air soft, the light fading into honey tones. Around the base, daisies turn their faces toward the last of the sun. Cosmos drift like pink clouds, and Rudbeckia burns gold beneath the lantern's soft glow. The post itself is simple, weathered wood or aged iron, but what surrounds it gives it soul. When darkness settles, the lantern comes alive, scattering warmth across petals that sway like tiny lanterns of their own. This design carries both charm and purpose. It marks the edge of your space while guiding guests safely home. Yet it's the mix of structure and spontaneity that makes it beautiful. The wildflowers do not need discipline. They grow as they please, bending, weaving, returning every year with different colors and moods. Their unpredictability is their art. To create one, start with a sturdy lantern post, vintage if possible or new but softened with matte paint or wood stain. Anchor it at the edge of your front yard where it can catch both sunlight and moonlight. Around its base, scatter a blend of wildflower seeds. Daisies for joy, cosmos for grace, marigolds for fire, lavender for calm. Water lightly, wait patiently, and nature will do the rest. The beauty of this idea lies in its change. No two evenings will ever look the same. Sometimes bees rest on the blossoms as the light turns amber. Sometimes a breeze moves through, making petals flicker in rhythm with the lantern's glow. Even in winter, when the flowers fade, the post remains. A silhouette against the quiet, a promise of return. The wildflower verge lantern post reminds us that light doesn't only come from electricity. It comes from color, from texture, from the persistence of growth. Each petal, each flicker of flame, tells the same story, that even at the edges of life, beauty finds a way to shine softly through the dark. Observe, imitate, then modify. That's how the ordinary finds its magic. The apple crate tiered flower stand begins not with perfection, but with nostalgia, the memory of fruit markets, wooden boxes stacked in rhythm, each one carrying the scent of work and harvest. Now, those same crates rise again, not for apples, but for flowers that bloom with joy. Picture it by your front steps. 3 or 4 crates stacked gently in tiers, their wood silvered by time, their edges softened by years of handling. In each, a burst of color spills out, pansies peeking brightly, geraniums climbing with energy, ivy trailing like ribbons over the sides. The whole structure feels playful yet grounded, as if it grew there naturally, encouraged by sunlight and care. Building it is beautifully simple. Gather old wooden crates or even small fruit boxes from a market. Choose ones with marks and imperfections, they tell stories. Stack them in a gentle staggered pattern. One flat, one tilted, one sideways to create depth and flow. Line each crate with garden fabric or coconut fiber to hold the soil. Then fill with a rich mixture and plant varieties that complement one another. Tall at the back, trailing in front. As the plants grow, the crates begin to blend into their surroundings. Roots press through cracks, flowers lean out, and the whole display takes on the gentle disorder that only real life creates. Water trickles through each layer, connecting them like verses in a poem. When sunlight moves across the surface, shadows shift through the slats, and everything feels alive. Imperfect, evolving, and completely human. This design carries more than aesthetic appeal. It's a celebration of renewal, of giving the discarded a second purpose. Each crate once bore fruit. Now it bears life again. And each bloom it holds seems to whisper the same message. That beauty doesn't fade with time. It simply changes form. Guests who pass your door will feel this warmth before they even notice it. The apple crate tiered flower stand isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It simply exists, quietly radiant. A small reminder that joy can be built, patiently, lovingly, from the simplest of things. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is how everyday objects become wonder. The jar firefly lantern stakes are born from simplicity. Old glass jars, once filled with jam or pickles, now reborn as carriers of light. When dusk falls, they awaken like quiet stars near the earth. A constellation handmade by human hands. Picture a garden at twilight. The air hums softly, the colors fade into blues and silvers, and along the path, small lights begin to glow. Each jar hangs from a simple metal stake, its glass catching faint reflections of sky and leaf. Inside, tiny threads of light pulse like captured fireflies, golden and alive. They do not dazzle. They whisper. Their warmth makes the night feel closer, safer, full of memory. What makes this design enchanting is its humility. It doesn't require wealth or electricity beyond a few small LED strings. The beauty lies in placement, in the patience to set each jar where the light will guide but not blind. Scatter them loosely, not in lines but in rhythms, as stars would choose their place. Between them, let herbs or flowers grow. When a breeze moves through, light trembles softly, and the whole garden seems to breathe. To make your own, gather jars of different shapes, clear, frosted, even tinted. Wash them gently and dry thoroughly. Coil a small strand of warm fairy lights inside, battery-powered for freedom of placement. Secure the lid, hang the jar on a metal hook or stake, and press it into the soil beside your walkway. As dusk falls, flick the switch. Watch how the light catches dew, how it glows through glass made imperfect by time. The magic is not in the materials, it's in the intention. Old jars once stored sweetness. Now they store warmth. Their glow reminds us that beauty does not have to blaze. It can shimmer quietly, enough to make us slow our step, enough to make us remember summer nights when fireflies drifted lazily through the dark. The jar firefly lantern stakes teach that light is not only seen, it's felt. In their soft glow, the garden becomes both memory and dream, a place where yesterday's scraps turn into tonight's quiet magic. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is how scraps become structure. The rustic split pallet fence stands as a quiet conversation between patience and imperfection. It doesn't enclose to exclude, it frames gently, marking a border without breaking the rhythm of the land. Made from wood once considered useless, it becomes a poem written in texture, tone, and time. Picture it running along the edge of a front yard, each plank cut from a different pallet, each board carrying its own story. Some lean slightly, some still show traces of paint from their working days. Together, they form a line that is more melody than geometry. Sunlight filters through the spaces between slats, scattering lines of gold across soil and herbs. Lavender leans against it, thyme spills over the base, and the breeze hums softly through its uneven rhythm. This fence is not built by perfectionists but by caretakers of beauty. You don't sand away its scars, you let them stay. The faded color, the split edge, the uneven height, they are the fingerprints of history. It's a boundary that doesn't shout, only whispers, "Here begins care." To make your own, collect old wooden pallets from markets, workshops, or discarded lots. Dismantle them carefully, removing nails but leaving their natural wear. Cut the boards into different lengths and arrange them loosely in the soil or along a small trench. Use horizontal beams or wire for support, but keep the gaps open. Those openings are the soul of the design, letting sunlight, wind, and sight pass freely. Over time, the fence will change. Rain will darken the grain, sun will silver the wood, moss will find its home along the base. And yet, it will remain. A living structure that ages gracefully beside the plants it guards. Guests will often pause at it, unsure why it feels so right. Perhaps because it looks honest. It carries the warmth of human touch and the humility of reclaimed life. The rustic split pallet fence reminds us that boundaries need not divide. Sometimes they can connect between garden and street, between craft and nature, between what was once thrown away and what now quietly stands with purpose. Observe, imitate, then modify. That is how memory finds form beneath our feet. The bottle-bottom mosaic stepping stones tell the story of transformation, where remnants of celebration and daily life become the jewels of the earth. What was once waste, an empty bottle forgotten after joy, now glimmers quietly underfoot, guiding the way home. Imagine a small path curving through a sunlit garden. Each step reveals a circle of light, greens, ambers, and blues captured inside handmade stones. When the sun strikes them, the ground comes alive with reflection, as if stained glass had fallen from heaven and rooted in the soil. The air hums with warmth, bees drift lazily between blooms, and every footstep feels deliberate, connected to something crafted with intention. Making these stones is less about skill and more about patience. Collect bottles in varied colors, from olive oil green to cobalt blue, and cut or sand their bottoms safely. Place each glass disc into wet concrete poured into shallow molds or trays. Press them gently until they sit flush with the surface, then let the sun and time do the curing. When the mold lifts, what remains is more than a stepping stone. It is a fragment of light preserved in earth. Set these pieces into gravel or soft soil, spacing them just far enough to invite a slow walk. Between the stones, let thyme or small succulents grow, softening the line between handmade and natural. As days pass, dirt settles into cracks, moss creeps around the edges, and the glass begins to age. Its polish fading into a quiet glow, like a memory softened by time. Children will trace the colors with their fingers. Adults will pause mid-step, caught by the sudden shimmer. It's that moment of surprise, that small, wordless awe, that makes this design eternal. The bottle-bottom mosaic stepping stones remind us that beauty often lives beneath the surface, waiting to be stepped upon, trusted, rediscovered. Each circle of glass holds a little sunlight, a little history, and a great deal of human care. It's proof that even what's broken can still shine, not in spite of its past, but because of it. As the final light of day settles over the garden, every object seems to breathe a little slower. The bottles catch a last glimmer, the herbs exhale their scent, and the wooden edges glow softly in the amber dusk. What was once a collection of forgotten things has become something whole, a space of balance between nature and memory. Each idea we've shared is a small act of transformation, proof that even the simplest materials can become poetry when touched with intention. At TERAFLORA Studio, we believe design is not about grandeur, but about gentleness, the quiet harmony between hand, earth, and time. Every project is a whisper of renewal, a reminder that creation is not about doing more, but about seeing more. When you walk through your own space and notice the way light falls on an old object, that moment of recognition is where design truly begins. May what you've discovered here stay with you, in the way you see color, in the way you listen to rain, in the calm you feel when you build with patience. Let your garden be your story, your hands the author, your imagination the soil where new life begins again and again. This content has been thoughtfully created with the support of AI, crafted to inform, inspire, and accompany you in your own journey of making. And if these moments of quiet creativity have brought you peace or inspiration, we warmly invite you to subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio. Join our growing circle of dreamers and makers, and let's continue to find beauty together. In every season, in every small, wonderful thing that waits to bloom.